Welcome back to Punching Up. I am in a good mood today, and I hope that you all are as well. What a difference 48 hours can make. This is the juice that we needed. I also need Cory Booker's workout routine. I need his juicing routine, apparently, or his non-hydrating routine. I need all of it. I need everything that gave him the clarity to give the speech that he did last night. I'm so energized. Mallory McMorrow announced her Senate run. She was just on the show. I think it was last week. So I'm feeling really, really good. And oh yeah, Wisconsin. I'm a Midwestern girl, so it was really exciting to see Wisconsin bring it home in the way that they did. People thought we were down for the count. We might have felt like we were down for the count, but this is punching up, and we're always on the up and up. And so I'm really excited because I've been one of the people who've been saying we need to align the messaging and the actions, and Cory Booker did that. And I'm incredibly excited about our guest tonight because he is somebody who knows how to align his words and his actions, and he is an expert in messaging as well. And so I want to bring him on right now, Brandon Wolf, who is, hey, Brandon, how are you?
Hey, good. Great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad that you're here. Now, I just want to talk real quick to everybody about how you ended up on the show tonight, because I was reading Mallory McMorrow's book, and I turned to a page, and there you were, and I wrote on there, Brandon, and reached out, and then I realized the next day, I was like, I looked at the next page, and I was like, oh yes, this is why Brandon is in this book. And it was a sobering moment. So can you talk a little bit about how you went from just a person living your best life in Florida to where you're at right now, which is the spokesperson for the HRC?
Yeah, I would love to. And I felt really honored that Senator McMorrow, gave me the opportunity to be in the book. I've really admired her work and her courage and her tenacity. As you said, I was just a regular person, right? Just a normal guy living my life. And the truth is that I moved to Florida from rural Oregon, where I grew up, in search of that sense of normal. I wanted to feel the way that so many other young people felt when I was growing up. And so I went in search of a world that looked a little bit more like me, where people loved a little more like me. And I stumbled upon it in Central Florida. I also, found chosen family for the first time and made an incredible group of friends. And, essentially had built this kind of normal that I wasn't sure people like us ever really get the opportunity to experience. And then in June of 2016, that normal was torn apart when I went to get a drink with my friends at our neighborhood bar, Pulse Nightclub, and it was upended by a man carrying an assault rifle. I learned a lot in the wake of the Pulse tragedy. I learned a lot about healing, about community. I learned a lot about what it takes to turn, pain into purpose. And I also gained a crystal clear understanding that sitting on the sidelines wasn't good enough anymore. I had this idea, this vision that I would ride normal into retirement, that I would just, ride off into the sunset with this chosen family and the sense of normal that I had discovered. And that just wasn't good enough anymore. And so I challenged myself. I made a promise to my best friend, who unfortunately didn't make it that night. I promised him that I would never stop fighting for a world that he would be proud of. And that in particular, to me, looks like a world where young people get to experience the kind of normal that I was worried I would never get a chance to experience.
It's so powerful to see, especially because you, Mallory, both normal people who decided to fight. And that's the purpose of this show, Punching Up, right? Like, it's fighting against fascist fuckery with a smile. That's how
always joyful warriors.
That's truly, because that's what's more sustainable, I find, for me. So with Cory Booker's speech, of course, he brought up Pulse. What was that like for you, hearing him invoke that when he was about to cede to Chris Murphy, Senator Chris Murphy.
Yeah, I think the context of Senator Booker's speech was really important, and the fact that he talked about, Pulse Nightclub was important too, because the last time that we had this sort of marathon moment was when Senator Chris Murphy, in the wake of the Pulse Nightclub shooting, took to the floor and gave a 15, 16-hour long filibuster speech demanding that the Senate at least take a vote on some gun safety legislation, right? It seems like the bare minimum. The bar is on the floor. All I want you to do is say yes or no. Do you support common sense reforms that will keep people safe and stop things like this from happening again? And so then you flash forward to, to Cory Booker's incredible speech that, now broke Strom Thurmond's record. And the fact that he hearkened back to Senator Chris Murphy and the fact that he had sat and supported him for those 15, 16 hours. And now Senator Murphy was there to support him. It was really powerful for him to, invoke this moment that was so deeply personal for me and so deeply personal for a lot of people. And I thought it was powerful for him to invoke another moment where a senator was willing to stand in the breach and say, this is wrong. Something has to change. We have to do something different to disrupt the normal order of things, to challenge their colleagues, to step up and take action, to defend their constituents. These moments in time, while they are not the same, they are similar in that way. This country is under siege. It's under attack from Donald Trump and Elon Musk and their minions who are parading around the city of Washington, D.C., firing people willy-nilly. And so in many ways, everything we know is at stake. And so there is some powerful parallels between Senator Murphy, stepping up there in 2016 and challenging his colleagues to do something about gun violence in this country, and Senator Booker standing in the breach and saying we need to do something about fascism in this country.
I think it woke people up, but when it started, I had a lot of people DMing me going like, what's the purpose of this? What's the point? He's not actually filibustering anything. So as a spokesperson, as somebody who understands the power of words, can you talk about the power of speech and the power of words?
Yeah, well, number one, the fact that we're talking about it today is a pretty good sign that it had an impact, right? The fact that Senator Booker and his speech were the top storyline all of yesterday, the number one trending thing on Twitter. It was on every major cable news network, including Fox News. And by the way, he had a TikTok live stream of his speech that was over 300 million likes by the time it came to an end. Like the reach of this moment of, solidarity and passion from the Senate floor was part of the plan. The part of the plan was to grab attention, grab headlines, to grab the spotlight, move it back to the people and center our stories. Because what I thought he did that was so powerful in his speech is he centered stories, not just of his constituents, but of people around the country who have been impacted by Donald Trump and Elon Musk's hostile takeover of the federal government. And so if for just 25 hours and 4 minutes or however long the speech was, if for just that long, he grabbed the spotlight away from Donald Trump and Elon Musk and JD Vance and Pete Hegseth, and he turned it back toward the American people. And he gave us an opportunity to share our stories. And I think the other thing that's important to remember when you're asking, why is it important that Cory Booker, again, stood in the breach and gave this powerful 25-hour long speech for the American people? It's important because it reminds us of the power we have. It reminds us that even though we may not have a voting majority in the United States Congress, even though we may not, have the person that we wanted sitting behind the desk in the Oval Office, that in a democracy, we still have power, that sharing our stories is power, that speaking truth to power is part of our power, that all of those things are necessary if we're going to fight back against an authoritarian takeover. I hope that Cory Booker gave people permission, that he empowered, that he inspired people to step up and share their own stories and to push back against this, Donald Trump, Elon Musk takeover.
Yeah, it's invigorating. It's powerful watching the way people reacted to it online. Like I was watching the live feed and just seeing the comments from people from all over the world saying, we're with you, we hear you, we support you. I know he got something like 15,000 voicemails, and that's probably just the ones that, we're able to get through. And so it feels like, and we were talking about this a little bit before the show, it feels like the vibes have shifted. And I'm like, this to me, like we made it through January, February, March. Like this to me can carry us through at least the next quarter.
Yeah,
What
and
are
I
your
was
thoughts?
saying, I'm like, I'm ready for Virginia. I'm ready for the midterms. Like, I am so fired up about what is possible when we are telling the stories of the American people, when we are centering the voices of people who so often go unheard. And listen, I'll just tell you, before I came to HRC, I've been in DC for about a year and a half now, but I spent 15 years living in the state of Florida. I spent 4.5 of those doing pretty much the same work I'm doing now, queer civil rights work in the state of Florida under Ron DeSantis's regime. So I have seen it at its worst. I have been in the cauldron. I've sat on the front lines and watched as rights and freedoms are eroded. And as I was saying to you before we got on, so much of the MAGA right wing agenda relies on this sense of inevitability. It relies on a feeling that they are invincible, that there's nothing you can do to stop them, that everything they do, with the wave of a Sharpie is law the very next day, and like they're this bulldozer that's coming for everything, and all you can do is get out of the way and try to protect yourself. But the moment you pierce through that veil of invincibility, of inevitability, not only do you inspire yourself, do you remind yourself of the power you have, but you also remind them of how weak they really are. A bully at their core is insecure and weak. And so they pick on you over and over again to hide those insecurities and that weakness. I think we saw a little bit yesterday of us piercing the veil of what they're trying to create, which is a sense of inevitability and invincibility.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because I was like, oh, what victory are you talking about? Because we've had so many, what feels like very strong victories in the last 48 hours. But of course, you're talking about Wisconsin.
Yes.
So what were were you feeling apprehensive about, or about Wisconsin, or were you feeling like, yeah, I think Susan Crawford actually is going to pull this off?
I'll say going into the night, I felt good because I felt like not only is Susan Crawford an incredibly qualified candidate, and a deeply serious candidate, I think in an era of deeply unserious politicians. Um, but I just felt like she'd run a really good campaign. She had
Mhm.
connected with the people. People on the ground understood the stakes of this particular election. They understood, what's at stake with fair maps, what's at stake with abortion rights in the state. So I felt like the path was very clear, but you can never count out, the world's richest man pouring tens of millions of dollars into a race at the last minute, putting on a cheese head and jumping around like a dork. You just never know what the outcome of that, sort of antic is going to be. And what I feel so inspired by today is that despite Elon Musk's best efforts to buy a Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin, the people overwhelmingly and resoundingly said, we are not interested in that agenda. We are not interested in being bought and paid for by Elon Musk. Wisconsinites said, we decide the future of this state. We decide the future of our own policies, not some guy who, flies in on his private jet, drops a few $1 million checks, and leaves. And I think that gives me hope for what's coming again in Virginia and other off-cycle elections, and then in the midterms. I think never count out the American people. Never count out people's belief in freedom. Never count out their belief in themselves and their communities. And if we get candidates who are willing to speak to people and the issues they're facing and the solidarity they're building with each other, community to community, I think anything is possible.
Yeah, it feels like Elon made the wrong move in Wisconsin because Wisconsin's filled with real people who are really paying attention to how people treat each other.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk doesn't treat people very nicely. He's not Midwestern nice. He's not any kind of nice. And
Yeah.
so I think they did see through it. And Charlie Kirk, though, has a different interpretation of why the Susan Crawford won and why they lost. And I know you like to quote tweet a lot of MAGA types. You were saying before. Can you tell people why you like to do that?
Well, one, I feel like we cannot normalize the absurdity of the things that come out of their mouths. And two, I also think they so often tell us, these influencer types, the right-wing talking heads, whose job it is to shift the Overton window toward the right, I think they're often telling us what the strategy is in advance, right? You look at people like Chris Rufo, who have been architects of, attacks on DEI and attacks on the word woke, who DeSantis ended up, bringing to Florida to upend their higher education system. He was talking about the right wing strategy on woke and DEI and all of these things long before it ever happened. He was tweeting about it. So, I think part of it is like, they're telling us the strategy. I want to help illuminate it. Part of it is I don't want to normalize the absurdity. So I'm always pointing out, like, this is actually really weird and absurd, and we should name that. And I think another part of it is like, I'm just trying to see if I can invoke a response. Like, let's see if they'll have the conversation right here and right now.
I absolutely love it. And I want to pull up the graphic for a specific reason of, look how long this is. This man is losing his mind when you can't even read it on the screen.
No, this is, by the way, this is when I use the meme that's like, I'm not reading all that, but I'm sorry that happened, or I'm happy for you. Like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what this is. It feels like it's better for maybe your next book, but come on, this is not a tweet.
Yeah, this is maybe headed to Substack or something, but the TLDR for everybody is basically like, we lost, but Republicans are the party of welders. We're the party of waitresses. And this is a wake up call that we need to be out there. And it just goes on and on. And I just responded underneath. I was like, I think this is just a sign that people are finally realizing that Elon only cares about Elon, Trump only cares about Trump, Vance only cares about Vance, you, Charlie Kirk, only care about you. And they don't like that.
I mean, listen, the irony of a gaggle of ultra wealthy people who do not know the first thing about what it's like to be a normal everyday person in this country, talking about being the protectors of the working class, will never be lost on me. I mean, this is the party that does not believe in union protections for workers. This is the party that believes that it's totally fine if you break your arm and go bankrupt, because that's just the way the cookie crumbles in this country. Like, none of those things are benefiting poor and working class people. I think last night's election was a reminder that people have no interest in an agenda that erodes the things they have come to rely on in their daily lives. People have no interest in an agenda where, Elon Musk is parading around Washington, D.C., deciding whose Social Security checks are worth keeping and whose are worth canceling next week. They're just not interested in what Elon Musk is selling. I saw everyone's favorite CNN guest, Scott Jennings, was on last night, and his take was, oh, maybe Elon Musk dropped money too late in the game. If he'd come in earlier, perhaps they would have won. And my argument is, I think Elon Musk being there was probably a bad thing for the Republican candidate. I think that rally was probably a bad move, because everybody saw him jumping around with the cheese head on, and they thought, yeah, I'm not buying whatever he's selling.
Yeah, he's not the real deal. And I also think it got the attention of Democrats in the state and people who are maybe weren't necessarily going to come out and vote, but then realized, oh, this man is trying to buy votes, which apparently he just bought one vote from the college Republican that he gave $1 million.
Not the best use of money. If I was investing money, I don't know if that's where I would spend it, but
but it's, he couldn't buy happiness. Now he's realizing he can't buy elections. I don't know what he is going to try to buy next, but I do know there is, I saw an article, a rumor perhaps, but maybe true, that he might be stepping away from some of his duties because he's so toxic.
Because he's so toxic. I mean, the damage that he has done to this administration, from the beginning, I kind of called it when he was in the Oval Office and he had his child on his shoulders. And, there was a period where Trump was like babysitting the kid while Elon Musk held a press conference from the Oval Office. It was in that moment that you could see the Elon Musk desperation for his own brand eclipsing, Donald Trump's own desperation for his brand to be front and center. And I thought, this isn't going to last long. There's no world where Donald Trump is going to cede the spotlight to Elon Musk, no matter how much money he spent on that presidential election cycle. And the moment that Elon Musk becomes an anchor around his ankles, there's no way he's staying around.
Yeah. And I think too, like it's almost like, it's the opposite of the sum of the parts. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I think that's how it goes. It's almost like
Yeah.
the two of them coming together diminished both of them, because I think
Yeah.
it exposed both of them to be extremely weak men, and they clashed off of each other in that way. And so to me, this is the opening that you speak about, which I'm incredibly it is the breath of fresh air that I needed. Real quick, you talked a little bit about Florida, and everybody on this show that are watching the show always want to know how to fight through dark times, how to
Yeah.
stay strong during dark times. Can you talk about the kind of messaging that you feel is more effective when we're fighting forces that are not interested in the law, not interested in kindness, not interested in empathy, not interested in any of the underpinnings of our Constitution?
Yeah.
How do we message and fight during those times?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this. The first thought I have is people don't want to be part of a team that feels like it's always losing. So you have to give people wins to look forward to, things to point to. You have to find joy in the work. I've always said there's no point in fighting for joy and liberation if you don't get to experience moments of joy and liberation along the way. And so in this moment, you've got to highlight these things, right? That we've got to highlight wins in Wisconsin and talk about what it took for people to show up and deliver that win. You've got to talk about, things like we've got a case that's moving through the Ninth Circuit right now, pushing back against the Trump administration's attempt to ban trans folks from serving in the military. We got a preliminary injunction on that, and we have to celebrate that. We've got, people doing incredible work on the ground in community to mobilize to town halls, to, show up to individual meetings with lawmakers. Every one of those things, we have to celebrate each other and we have to celebrate the work. That's number one, is we've got to find wins along the way to keep people recharged. Number two is we can't get distracted by the rage bait. Donald Trump is a master of this, where he just dumps things into the ether all the time. And there are some things that are really clickbaity and they're really good for generating like rage online, but they actually probably don't mean a whole lot in terms of policy and impact to people's lives. It is incumbent upon us, to stay really laser focused on the places where we want to have an impact. Like we should not be letting up on the national security apparatus using their personal phones and Gmail accounts and sending war plans over Signal. That's a place where we can have real impact. We can see people lose their jobs, and we've got to push on that. We cannot give up talking about, their attempts to cut Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, NIH, CDC, HIV prevention funds. Like these are places where we can lean in and have an impact. And we can't let Donald Trump distract us with every little, new nickname he has for one of his political opponents. And I would say finally, we have to continue to ground ourselves in the language of people, of of the people who are being impacted by things. When you spend time in community, you hear people talking about wanting to make sure their kids have it better than they did. You hear them talking about, wanting a life where they don't have to choose between filling their prescription or putting food on the table. You hear them talking about the dreams and aspirations they have and what freedom would look like if they actually got access to it. When we speak that language, we build more allies, we bring more people into the fight, and it doesn't feel like we have to save the world on our own every day. So those are some of the things that I learned along the way in Florida, but I think it always comes back to our ability to connect on a human level with each other and find some joy along the way.
You make it sound so effortless.
Well, I don't know about effortless, but it is, listen, the work is hard right now, and there's no denying that. Things are really challenging for a lot of people. This administration has been catastrophic from day one. I think worse and swifter than a lot of people maybe imagined, even those of us who read Project 2025 from front to back. And so we have to just acknowledge that things are really challenging right now, but the way we get through it is together. And the way we get through it is by like celebrating each other and sharing in our humanity. So it is hard. I try to make it sound effortless and joyful, but I truly think that if we can do that, if we can do it together, that we can win this thing.
I believe you. I believe you 100%, especially because, and I want to bring it back to this because I do want to encourage everyone who is watching to own their power. You now are a spokesperson for HRC, a huge national organization. And you've only been at this for basically a decade, less than a decade. Can you talk to everyone out there? I almost want like a rallying of the troops, if you will, about what it is to go from just being, because Mallory McMorrow, we just talked about, is doing a similar thing. Like she was an industrial designer and decided that she wanted to get into politics. What would you say to people right now who are thinking, hey, maybe I should try to hop in. Maybe I should try to run for office or to work on a campaign? Or
Well, first of all, do it. I mean, I wrote a book in the summer of 2023, and people always ask me, what was the hardest part of writing a book? And I say, writing a book. Sitting down and writing a book was the hardest part of putting that piece of work into the world. The same is true for this work. The hardest part is just jumping in and figuring out where you fit. But I would say, like so many things in our society, we seem to assign value to people's advocacy based on how bright the lights are, based on how big the stage is, based on how many followers they have, or how many clicks whatever they put out into the world gets. When in truth, the hardest and most important work that we do every single day is one-to-one conversations around dinner tables, at coffee shops, in local groups and gathering spaces. Every one of us is an advocate or an activist if we choose to be. Every one of us is a trusted messenger in whatever community we occupy. And so I would challenge everyone to believe in yourself. That's what makes this system so beautiful. That's what I think makes my journey so rewarding, is that I didn't, grow up dreaming that I would be a spokesperson for a national organization. I didn't even dream of changing the world. I just wanted to find a place to belong in it. And when I realized how hard that was for people like me, I understood that my job was to reach back and try to bring people on that journey with me. Every one of us has the power to do that. So I would encourage you, find the thing that fires you up, find the issue that you're passionate about, find the place you want to plug in, whether it's running for office, working on a campaign, helping to build, social media content, or having a conversation at your local PTA meeting. Whatever the thing is that brings you reward and fulfillment in this work, lean into it and know that your work is powerful, it's necessary, and it's only with all of us doing that work that we're going to be able to win this.
Well, y'all heard it from Brandon, and so I fully expect people to really listen to that and let that sit with them, because I think we are in a very special time right now, and I think this is the opportunity for people to really start to use their voices in ways that they haven't before. And so I'm incredibly grateful that you were able to come on the show tonight, and I'm glad that we were able to talk about a lot of amazing things that are happening, as opposed to having, maybe if it were last week, things would have been a little bit darker in the conversation.
Maybe. We love to find hope along the way. I will always find hope in this work.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you, Brandon, so much for being here, and you are welcome back anytime. So please come on through.
Thank you.
All right, y'all, we have an assignment. I love to give you assignments. I don't even know if anybody actually does these assignments, but if you do, can you let me know? I want you to grab like a pen or a notebook and a computer, whatever it is that you like to do your reflection work on. And I want you to talk to yourself. This is your prompt. This is like a journal prompt about how you felt and how you feel seeing Cory Booker be up there on that stage and speaking to the people and for the people, and finally aligning message with actions. And I want you to ask yourself, what would it look like if you did the same thing in your life, day in and day out? And so, yeah, there it is. It's a journal prompt for me too. I'm going to do the journal prompt. Thank you so much for being here. Truly appreciate everyone's support. I am Maya on stage on all of the platforms now, including Substack. I haven't posted in maybe a week or so, because it's a new platform for me and I'm trying to get used to it, but I promise you I will be posting on there more. So thank you for watching Punching Up, and please make sure to check out the rest of Lincoln Square Media's shows. And we'll be doing some live soon. So I will see you on a live, and then I can answer questions in real time, and it'll be a ton of fun. So until then, be safe out there. There's going to be some protests April 5th, as you know. So make sure you hydrate, protect yourselves. And yeah, we've got this. This is it. I'm convinced now that we've got this. I will see you guys next week.